Hey guys, Kenneth All here. Today we're going to talk about Diablo 4 launch, my thoughts on it. One of the things that has been coming up a lot is world tier level, what you should play on. And then I've been doing a little bit of build crafting and theory crafting. Of course, looking at Don the Crown's doc, huge resource. But I'm also making my own doc to supplement it because one of the things that his doc doesn't have is all the passives on it. It's not crazy useful. You don't need to know this information ahead of time. But for instance, for the rogue, you can see that crit damage actually too um, not too much on the rogue Paragon board. At least the ones that we have now and what we have available to us. Of course, all this can change when we get the pre-download. More dynamiting will happen, and again, when it launches, if there's a day one patch, there will be more data mining and just us playing the game for us to figure it out. But for instance, for the rogue, you'll see that there's very little crit damage, and that just means when you're building your rogue, you might, if you're going for crit, you definitely want to have this board. You definitely want to go for this passive. You might want to save a glyph. Well, this isn't in a glyph socket. Scratch that. But you might want to build your gear around getting as much crit damage. Of course, if you're going crit, you're probably going to get as much crit damage as you want anyway. But it's just something to look out for. These damage buckets are from this guide. This was made, it's pretty much groups all the ones that are like of the same type together. It's probably, it's as correct as we could get it right now, and it seems pretty reasonable. With some things to look out for, like for instance, some classes like the Rogue and Sorceress only have one thing for damage while healthy in this category, which means getting damage while healthy means you get a huge damage multiplier. Same thing for everyone with vulnerable damage. Vulnerable damage is a huge multiplier. Not only does it make the enemy take more damage, but if you get more damage multipliers for your own vulnerable damage, you're just gonna do so much more. Pretty much all crits together. Anything like this, damage 2 burning, damage 2 frozen, or damage 2 elites, it's just all going to be the same. And you're kind of going to want to spread your damage around, so just keep that in mind when you're looking at stuff and looking at guides. One thing I've also noticed, like, these things have patterns, like for instance, potent, abuse skill damage, total of 52.5% if you get the bonus. And same thing for this node. And if you look, like, damage to distant enemies, also 52.5%. And like a lot of these multipliers are pretty much the same across the board, some being stronger than others. So I have Rogue and Druid done. I'll definitely try to get the other classes done and maybe try to link up with Don and put this in his doc, because I don't mind maintaining it, but I really just would like all the information in one spot, even if it means I'll get less credit for it. Makes my life easier. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was world tiers, and a lot of people have been talking about, oh, you should play world tier 1, world tier 2 is not really worth it. I think Rax actually has a great breakdown of this topic, and for the most part it boils down to, if you want the most efficient, it's going to be world tier 1, unless you get an upgrade or some crazy power. And then if you're feeling super strong, yeah, upgrade to veteran, blast the game. If you're starting to feel weak again, go back to world tier 1. You can interchange it. The most efficient way is going to be to interchange it. But you know, I like to play hard games, so I'll probably be playing on veteran. Another thing, like, yes, this is the launch of the game. Yes, everyone's going to be playing for the first time. Some people are going to be racing to get the first level 100s, the first, like, last boss kill, etc., etc. This is, like, all preseason. I wouldn't worry about it too much, especially when making a character. Yeah, I have done all this work. I really like min-maxing. But to be honest, a lot of these systems are easy enough that if you just play whatever class you think you like are gonna enjoy the most based on aesthetic, whatever, you're gonna have a good time. I mean, if we look at D3, yes, not every class is balanced perfectly. Not every class pushes GR 150s as fast, but every class can do pretty much everything in the game. I mean, not every build is good, but by the time you get to 50, if you're just casually playing, you're going to be able to look online, look at guides, and see what other things can help you. I will say Paragon boards definitely get more complex. I've been using mostly Lithrex for the Paragon boards just because everything's laid out together, which is super nice. And one thing that you can see is that between classes, so it's going to be hard to tell because I'm just going to switch, but basically the board's shapes are actually the complete same. And like I said, a lot of these, even across the two classes, I noticed from Druid to Rogue, not only are a lot of like rare nodes completely the same and like clusters around them, like for instance, like the resilience node, shadow, suffused, poison resistance, like these nodes are shared between classes, so they'll be the exact same. But like shadow and poison, they have the same values, just a different res. Same thing with cold, same thing with lightning. Again, like damage to CC, and this will practically be the same exact node on a different class. So you'll kind of get a feel for it once you start looking at it. And I don't think it's going to be that important. I actually, after doing all this, still think it's super valuable. Like I said, you can get a nice overview of what damage buckets are on your Paragon boards. But I think the glyphs is where you're going to get most of your power on the end. Your base Paragon boards that we have here, this is where you're going to get a lot of power up front when you're going, but you're going to be able to see it. You're going to see a legendary power that you like, and you're just going to be like, oh, I want that. And then you're going to look at the rare nodes, and you're going to be like, okay, that looks like a cool one. That looks like a cool one. Yeah, when you're like planning out a full Paragon tree like this, and using every single point as best you can, of course, you're going to want to know exactly what you need and what you want, etc. But at the first like pre-season time, honestly, I wouldn't worry about it. I would just have fun, level up. I mean, I don't expect most people to even get to like 90. If it's anything like PoE, and I don't expect it to be as bad as PoE. I don't expect it to be as bad as D2 either. But I do expect, like, especially 90 to 100 to really start to, in 2 months before the first season starts, I don't expect most people. So, when you're building out these boards, not only will you not have 220 points, you'll have maybe 150. You won't have these huge radius and increased damages on your glyphs. You got to level them up to get the increased radius. So I honestly, I wouldn't worry about it too much going to preseason. Just have fun, maybe even experiment with a couple classes. And then when the first season comes around, we'll have a much, much better idea of how things are balanced, where things are. Of course, there's going to be a balance patch, but keep an eye out, and I'm sure you'll do just fine. One thing that I will say is when I was first looking at the skill system and the aspects, I was definitely, let's just say, I don't prefer aspects to have these crazy multipliers on them for individual skills. This comes with, like, for instance, this power for twisting blades makes the blades orbit you. That completely changes how the skill is going to work, and it itself multiplies the damage. So to have this damage multiplier on top of it, I just feel like it's not necessary, and I think we could get more interesting combinations if they focused on specific mechanics interacting with each other. But for instance, I found some interactions, like these boots leave a trail to chill enemies. I don't have any other chill in the build. But this, if you play PoE, is very similar to like Scorching Boots from Maven. And basically, I'm just going to use these. Hopefully the radius isn't terrible, but I'm a melee rogue, so it should be fine. And I'm going to chill enemies, get 10% more damage. Alright, that's fine. But why would I use them? Well, then you have this utility, which is when chilled enemies get poisoned by poison imbuement, they further get chilled. And I believe the way it works is when chill builds up enough, they get frozen, which means we'll be able to freeze things as well, which is another defensive layer for this build. But then you get 25% additional poison damage, frozen enemies, which is just more damage. I believe when bosses get staggered, which since they'll be getting chilled, I think that'll build up the stagger bar very quickly, which is awesome. Since every hit further chills them, should hopefully build up the stagger bar on bosses very quickly. And then once the boss is actually staggered, then we'll get the damage bonus for frozen and chill. I don't believe you get the damage bonus for chill. I don't believe bosses can be chilled or any CC. I don't think they're affected until they're staggered, and then they get everything. Just, it's kind of weird, but I guess it's a way to balance, like, I don't know, I feel like chill should slow bosses as, like, a defensive layer, but it is what it is. Also to keep in mind, if anyone has uniques in their build guides, like I do here, this isn't really a build guide. It's not a leveling build guide. It's just something I'm kind of theory crafting. If someone has a unique, just keep in mind you don't get uniques until after 50. So you're not going to be looking for this, and you might not get it for a long time. There are legendary aspects that drop specifically from dungeons. So this one has it drops from Skazglen, which I believe is Act 2, so you'll be able to get this super fast. But just keep in mind, if you see one, like this one, that doesn't have a drop location, most likely it's just completely random. And that means you're going to have to be very careful on when you imbue it, because as soon as you imbue it, that's it. You can't imbue it on another item again, so you basically lose it and have to find it all over again. And two, you can't guaranteed get these powers. You might get lucky, and you might get one, and if it's on gloves like this, you can wear it for as long until you get another one, and then, you know, swap and imbue, whatever you want to do. Just keep that in mind, that you're not going to be able to get all these that don't have a specific drop location. So yeah, that's pretty much it. D4 launch next week, which is pretty cool. I'll probably have a build guide out for this, and actually I'm working on a Druid build guide, which is why I did the Druid passives as well. This one's kind of for fun. For me, I wanted to make a tornado build. I honestly think the werewolf druid looks better. Just seems to have more stuff going for it. But I might just try to force it. So if you're looking for that, maybe you can check that out too. But yeah, keep posted for some build guides, and I'll see you on D4 launch.